This week's parsha is Parshas Mishpatim, and in this week's parsha we continue the monologue of the occasion of Har Sinai. So in last week's parsha, the statements were about the Ten Commandments, the Aseres HaDibros, and we're continuing to learn more laws in this week's parsha at Har Sinai. So we have been introduced to a large set of laws. It's interesting to think about that this is the culmination of the event which they were describing to Pharaoh. We will go and we will sacrifice to HaShem in the Midbar. Really, the truth is they were going to receive their own set of laws. That was not germane to their discussion with Pharaoh, of course, but it was germane to them. And in a sense, this was something that was promised to them, that they would be able to go ahead and worship HaShem properly. They knew who he was, and they knew there were some expectations. So this event was anticipated, and it was something that eventually was something that, even though it's not mentioned previously, it's now the focal point of the entire story, is to now receive all the laws which, as Chazal explained, had been intuited or revealed along the way to our forefathers, to the Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and so we sort of were familiar with them. So it was not unfamiliar, a lot of these rules. So this week's Parsha opens up with all of these rules, proper way to treat people. Of course, naturally it opens up with talking about how to treat servants. Naturally, it makes the most sense after sort of laying out the first 10 commandments, the sort of essential laws of Sadiq Gaon says, sort of like the table of contents for the Torah. And once those are laid out and expressed to us, then we kind of go through some of the details. What's really interesting is that so the first 5 aliyahs are the laws, okay, and the connection between the beginning of the parsha and the rest of Har Sinai is to tell us that the expectation is that judgment itself is a godly process, that the installation of justice is a religious event, not just a civil, secular event. And the way in which we connect that starts really with the 6th aliyah in the parsha. Because the parsha has, up until now, been delineating, treat your slaves nice, don't lend with interest, be nice to each other, how to deal with capital crimes, civil crimes, when your animals get a little rowdy, how to handle agricultural laws. We've been introduced to a lot of laws that were not really feasible while living in Egypt because it was an economy based on someone else controlling you. Now, the Jews did live somewhat independently there for 270 years, of course, but again, those laws were sort of intuited. And as we saw at the beginning of Parshas Yisro, there's not a good sense of how to really delineate responsibility amongst others in the community. And in the Mishpatim, we're really talking about the individual person's responsibility to keep these laws. And the reason why that's important in this parsha, separate from the previous parsha, is because in the 6th aliyah it talks about God sending an angel to guard us along the way. So there's an interesting machlekes rishonim, there's dispute amongst the commentators about whether or not this angel starts here at Har Sinai in our parsha as they leave. So they're eventually going to leave Sinai and travel. Right, so that's going to be the event. First we're going to build the Mishkan and put the Mishkan, and then at the beginning of Parshas, but Midbar is actually go anywhere. But all of the other events are really happening in Chorev, and then we take a few weeks of reading to get to where we actually have to leave. But stay with me for that, and we'll get to it. But at this point in the story, the idea is that the journeys sound like they're going to be led by an angel. So that's what Rashi seems to imply, is that the angel here, this is a setup for understanding that you're getting set up for the angel here, and then with the sin of the golden calf, which we experience in Parshas Ki Sisa, is an event that severs that relationship, and the angel itself can't be around us when we're committing sins like idolatry. So the Ramban asks a very simple question. He says, is that really the shot over here? So he says, listen, I looked at the same midrash that Rashi looked at. And that's one approach. One approach is that there's an angel that's going to take over. But the Ramban says that angel doesn't show up till the days of Yehoshua. Why does he say that? Well, he argues and he says that there's a lot of sources that indicate that the relationship between being in the Midbar with Moshe and being in Eretz Yisrael with Yehoshua, which at this point we don't know is going to be with Yehoshua, were two different experiences of this aspect of Sinai. So the idea is that the Ramban explains, just to be clear, the Ramban explains that HaShem, his presence is directly in the encampment while Moshe Rabbeinu is there. And this is a tremendous amount of honor paid to Moshe Rabbeinu, and specifically the honor to the Jewish people that God has taken the time out to be there while they are in this transition process, learning the laws, understanding the nature of it. So the Ramban is actually offering a very different approach to the story than the way Rashi is offering it. Rashi's approach to the story is the following way. We are presented as a people at Horev, where the temple was where the Torah was given, and we build the Mishkan there, to interact with HaShem through the Mishkan by the process of observing the laws, observing the sacrifices, and so on and so forth. But there was this level of separation that existed in between the Jewish people and HaShem through this angel, the point of the angel was to provide protection. And it also allows the Hashem's presence to be moved slightly away. The Ramban argues on that a little bit and says that, no, really, my presence is going to be here as long as Moshe is here, and that's going to continue. And when we look at later parshas, like at the end of Devarim, there are certain promises made there that Hashem will perform certain small miracles, like sending out hornets and other beasts and stuff like that to deal with the Canaanites. And there's other things too. That there's what is it, Avnei al Gavish, the Avanim She'amad al Gavish that were thrown at the Amorites that tried to lay traps for the Jewish people. So there were these events that were miracles performed by Hashem, but there was a level of separation provided by this angel in the land of Israel that doesn't exist in the Midbar. And that's a very important distinction between having the angel lead you and having Hashem lead you. And we actually talk about that really significantly at the Seder, that it's God who comes in, God who performs the miracles, God who performs the whole thing, because that's the experience that we have. And the reason why this is important theologically is more explicit in the Ramban than it is in Rashi. In Rashi, we have to intuit what Rashi is really talking about. Let's just sort of go with what Rashi is saying. Rashi doesn't have a developed philosophy and an extensive developed philosophy as the Ramban has. But for Rashi, we see there's a layer in between, that there is this angel in the middle, and it's named Metatron, which basically means some type of leader or captain or something along those lines. And it's not technically a Hebrew word, but the gematria of Metatron is the same as Shakai, right? Shin Dalad Yod, the name of Hashem, which means one who has said enough to this world. So we are approached by this angel who is basically a black and white enforcer. I think it's very black and white. Jews follow the rules. You provide all types of crazy interventions on their behalf, and they're very specific and laid out. That relationship becomes very binary, and so it's basically, you do this, I do that. You do this, I do that. You don't do this, I don't do that. You don't do this, I don't do that. And if you continue to not do this, I continue to not be there for you. So that's how you would understand Rashi's. The Ramban is a different one. The Ramban has developed a philosophy of the idea that having an angel in between you and Hashem is a way in which people are led astray to Avodah Zarah. And he develops this very, very thoroughly, both in the parsha in the parsha Yisro in a long segment on the Aseret Debros there, and he also develops it further when talking about in the beginning of Vayikra, when he talks about we always make sacrifices to the name of Hashem, the four-letter name. Not to get too much off topic, but the focus here, the Ramban says that having that very specific and personal relationship with Hashem, the Jewish people and Hashem directly connecting with each other, is the unique relationship that sets the Jewish people apart from other peoples in the world. Everybody in the world has their guardian angel. And that's a topic that if you read my blog post from Parshas B'Shalach, I talk a little bit about that idea of the guardian angels and how they interact, and how they also can advocate on behalf of their own people. But having one of those is both good and both bad. Meaning, it's good means like Hashem is watching out for you. It's bad because you don't experience the full flavor of having Hashem being close to you. Now, what does that actually feel like according to the Ramban? So he explains that and then he develops this idea of like one who lives outside the land of Israel is like one who serves idols, because one doesn't have this personal protection and these personal guarantees coming from Hashem directly. The idea that when you perform well with the mitzvos and you're good to others, that you will see blessings. The idea is that there is a sense of feeling direct divine intervention and divine presence in the land of Israel as a result of doing good. And it's something that helps to motivate you to preserve that behavior pattern. Outside the land of Israel, things seem to go on as regular. You turn on the weather, it's going to snow, it's not going to snow, it's going to rain, it's not going to rain, it's going to be sunny, it's going to be hail, it's going to be something, right? So everyone seems to think that they understand it and can predict the weather. So the thing is that that experience and that lack of expression through normal natural events is a layer of disconnect between the Jewish people and Hashem. So at the end of the parsha, towards the end of the parsha, when we're talking about having the angel among us, the Ramban explains that is something that was not the experience we were meant to have while Moshe Rabbeinu was alive. And so therefore we felt that in everything that was done, that it was really the hand of God, the outstretched arm, the strong hand, the one that brings us forth from Egypt, the one who provides us with the cloud by day and the fire by night. These were phenomenon that we experienced, that we could clearly feel the presence of Hashem. And so in the performance of all of these mitzvos and in the preservation of judgment, we, in a sense, are preserving our relationship with Hashem. In many ways, it's like having a normal, functional household. People can't live and can't function in a household where there's constant fighting, constant bickering, and things are always going wrong, and there's no sense of doing for others and of being charitable and empathetic. If you're always out for you, you're like Amalek, you're like the Amori, you're like all these other people out there who have no sense of how to build things that are constantly interconnected. And really the best word I've seen on this is there's an article from Rav Shlomo Wolbe, Alav Shalom, and in his book Olam HaYedidos, and it's a not very popular book. It's not as popular as Alei Shor, and certainly not as Zrio Vinya V'Chinuch, which were two of his bestsellers. You can find those. Olam HaYedidos. Good luck finding Olam HaYedidos. But Olam HaYedidos is a book in which he discusses how the kindness to other things interconnects them, and he develops different ideas. It's beyond this idea, but in the thrust of the introductory article in that book, or the introductory chapter in that book, is to say that the sense of kindness to other things is what brings them together, either because they feel that if they do for me, I do for them, but really the truth is that kindness is what brings it all in. The sense of responsibility and interconnectivity is the love that brings everybody together. It's the glue for the whole society. So in many ways, that's what the Ramban is talking about, is having that interconnectedness with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. But because Moshe Rabbeinu passes away, we don't merit the same level of connection. So Yehoshua gets introduced to the captain of the guard on his way into the land of Israel. And the captain of the guard, of course, tells him, don't forget to learn Torah day and night. That let the words of Torah not pass, lo yomush divrei Torah zos mipicha yomam v'layla, right? And that's what we say every single night, and when we learn Mariv, is we say those pretty much those same exact words. Okay, so we say that we're always there studying Torah, and Torah is always a big part of our lives. So connecting Har Sinai with the expression of justice and kindness and acts of community are an important part of the connection, and in many ways that's also the connectivity between ourselves and Hashem. And so to sort of bring together the difference of opinion with Rashi, the idea is of preserving our sense of protectedness by the angel. And with the Ramban, it's talking about specifically our relationship with connecting directly with Hashem and not having the interference by the angel. Have a great Shabbos, and I hope to speak with you next Parsha.